Welcome back to Telltale Books. This is my final video for the Murray Leinster Forgotten Planet series. And this one, of course, is that final novel. Forgotten Planet was made up from the Mad Planet, the Red Dust, and Nightmare Planet. The Mad Planet was published in 1920. The Red Dust was published in 1921. Nightmare Planet wasn't published until 1953, when Leinster wanted to take the first two stories and try to turn them into a full novel to sell to paperback publishers. Because in the early 1950s, both hardcover and paperback publishing of science fiction books suddenly blossomed, and the publishers wanted science fiction. So Leinster chose these as a good series that he could quickly throw into a novel and make some extra money. So The Forgotten Planet was first published in hardcover by Gnome Press in 1954. Gnome Press being one of those first publishers to specialize just in science fiction books. There was Gnome Press, Fantasy Press, Shasta, of course Arkham House, but Arkham House didn't really publish much science fiction back then. They were focused mostly on H.P. Lovecraft and the other Weird Tales authors. So the story here is very much the same as the three shorter works put together. Nightmare Planet started with a section which kind of explained how the planet is actually an alien planet far off. It's not Earth, but it is far in the future, and Earth ships had come and seeded primitive Earth life forms on these planets as a prelude to making it colonizable, because you need certain biotics in the soils and in the soil and stuff in order to farm. So that piece of Nightmare Planet was at the very beginning of the novel, and then it goes into the Mad Planet, and the very beginning of the Mad Planet was slightly rewritten to accommodate this change to a far distant alien world, and the fact that the Earth people had crashed there and then lost their civilization and become a primitive society because of how many dangers there were on this world. And so then from there, the first third of the book is the Mad Planet. I really could not see, and I may be wrong, there may be some slight changes, but I really could not see any changes in that or the following section of the Red Dust. I could not see any changes to that story. Not significant ones anyway. Little bit of changes, because in the original Red Dust, Burl was kind of full of himself by the end of it, with all the rest of the tribe basically bowing down to him as, well, definitely their king, if not their god. So that was kind of taken out in order to make a smoother segue into the third section, Nightmare Planet. So then Nightmare Planet was pretty much as is at the end of the book, and wrapping up the whole book. So the fact that he didn't change very much, that's what I'm disappointed with, because each of the original story, The Mad Planet, was really good as a standalone story. It was a complete story. It was all about Burl on this odyssey through this landscape, and by the end of it, he had changed, he had grown, he had started to think more. The Red Dust kind of just rinse and repeat, except now he's leading the whole tribe. But you have this danger, and they have to go somewhere else, and so he leads them, and they go through the landscape and have a bunch of adventures and almost die and stuff, and then they get to this nice valley where they can settle down. And then Nightmare Planet does the same thing. They're happy in this valley, but along comes this spider and all of its offspring, hunting them and killing them, and so they have to move somewhere else. So he leads them up the mountain. And the novel maintains those three sections. It doesn't feel like a single flowing story. It does feel like three separate odysseys that just repeat the same formula. I had hopes that Leinster would have done something to merge the stories together into a single narrative where we see Burrow growing through the whole thing, but maybe he does, there is a little of that, but just not as strong as what I was hoping to see. There was a great opportunity here for a very strong novel to take this and just completely reconstruct it into a single narrative, not three parts. And Leinster just didn't do it. Didn't have time, or maybe he just wasn't that good of a writer. I don't know. But that all makes The Forgotten Planet as a novel fall short. It's still enjoyable. Probably a lot more enjoyable if you just read The Forgotten Planet and don't read those other stories. Or I guess what I would suggest is just read The Mad Planet and forget all the rest. The Mad Planet by itself was a very good imitation of an Edgar Rice Burroughs adventure. At least that's how I took it. And being written and published in Argosy in 1920, I'm sure that's what Leinster was thinking when he wrote it. And it was, I think it was a fabulous story. I gave that one a top tail, but all the others, the other two stories and the full novel just don't rise to what they could have been. If you like classic science fiction, if you like Burroughs style Lost World type adventures, then you'll probably like reading the whole novel of The Forgotten Planet, or alternatively reading the original short work The Mad Planet, but not both. If you're a diehard, I gotta know everything about classic science fiction, then do like I did, read them all. But be prepared that you're going to have some disappointments with it. You're going to see where it could have been a lot more than what it is. That's my final analysis of it. It's really good for the classic science fiction fan that's willing to put up with something that's not as well written as what we have today and has some structural problems. You're going to enjoy these. For everyone else, I would say skip it. And so that's The Forgotten Planet, my first foray into a book club. Specifically Michael K. Vaughan and his mummy Roger, their cheap old book club, because all the books that they are going to be reading are in the public domain and available for free on Project Gutenberg. And by the way, yes, both the novel Forgotten Planet and the story Nightmare Planet for sure. I didn't look for the other two as separate files in Project Gutenberg, but they may be there. They are in Project Gutenberg, so you can read this absolutely free Or you can do as I did and search for one of the nice editions, used editions. I don't think it's currently in print, of The Forgotten Planet, and read that. This one is the Crown Science Fiction Classics. In the 1980s, they published 10 volumes of science fiction classics. This one's number 6. Tells me that right there, volume 6. With an introduction by George Zebrowski and a foreword by Isaac Asimov. Pretty decent book. I'm trying to collect all 10 of these. I've got 7 of them so far. Otherwise, of course, the original Gnome Press edition, that's going to set you back a bit. And the Gnome Press books, they weren't printed on acid-free paper. I've yet to see a Gnome Press book where the pages weren't absolutely orange. So their quality is not up there. And that means what you're paying for is very quickly deteriorating, and you're going to pay more for those Gnome Press books than for something like this. So I guess, if you got to have the Gnome Press, go for it, but be aware, those were not good books. And of course, the Forgotten Planet was also published in paperback by Ace Books, more recently in paperback by Carolyn Graff. So there are copies, physical copies of the book that you can get a hold of. And so I move on. I will be reading more Murray Leinster. There are other stories that I think are absolutely top-notch by Murray Leinster. But I've got such a long list now of authors that I'm trying to read everything they wrote. I'm not going to add Murray Leinster to that list, at least not at this time. I'm going to focus on the other authors, and I'll get back to Murray Leinster. In particular, I want to do a video on a logic named Joe one of these days. That is a great early robot story. So until then, I hope you'll like us, subscribe to us, leave comments. What did you think of the Forgotten Planet? Did you go and join in with Roger's cheap old book club? It's a lot of fun, and Michael Vaughn is a great and funny guy. He doesn't take himself too seriously, which is what I really like about him. His videos are a lot of fun to watch. And otherwise, come back and watch me in whatever else I'm doing, and Emily will be joining me at times in